Welcome back to the Success Shift, everybody. We're here. We are cultivating entrepreneur confidence. It is a great Friday, and I am happy to introduce our guest for the day, Greg Pihs from Nashville, Tennessee. Many of you have actually, if you've been with us for long, many of you have actually heard Greg on our very first episode that we had, but he interviewed me a little bit. And so now I'm actually going to be reversing the roles and interviewing Greg. And so if you haven't listened to that show, I encourage you to go listen to that show. But first and foremost, I want to introduce Greg. Greg, thank you for coming on today, brother. And if you want to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about you.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be on. Thanks for having me, Colby. And this is an amazing platform you've created to share back with those looking for. I remember what it was like in the beginning for myself, looking for those nuggets because success leaves clues. So a little bit about myself. I am I'm a survivor of pretty graphic childhood child abuse. I ran away when I was young, Marine Corps veteran, a couple of combat tours, and really faced a really rough battle with PTSD for a couple years, and eventually that led me to study in psychology at a pretty deep level, which eventually comes to a place where I now run my own training academy, hosting transformational events, doing NLP certifications, firewalking, and things like that. I'm excited to be on here today and share with everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And so for those of you that just heard, Greg he's a motivational speaker, a mindset coach, and honestly a coach for trauma and many kinds. And his, again, like you said, the GP Mind Growth Academy is his personal business, his personal coaching platform that I am actually a student of. So thank you for that, Greg. But everything that Greg does, he brings so much care into his clients, and the transformations are amazing. So I'm going to leave it at that. And if you are actually more interested in that, then you guys can go visit gregpihs.com, right? Or
Yep.
And then do you have gpmindgrowthacademy.com as well, Greg?
Both of them. Yep.
Perfect. So you guys heard it from him. You can go visit those websites to dive more into what the GP Mind Growth Academy actually does for you personally. But with that being said, Greg, you just mentioned like your entire life in about a span of 5 seconds, right? Which is where I want to dive into. So from childhood trauma to Marine Corps, to finding your path, and to now where you're at with entrepreneurship and the success that you have. Can we start? Do you mind starting a little bit about your childhood? Because I think that's so important if you're okay with that. So many people fall into, that space, right? That victim spot to where they are a victim of a piece. And I think it's really important for everyone to know that is experiencing those things right now, that you're not alone and you can change the outcome, right? And so if you're okay diving into that and kind of how you started with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit about my childhood. And I like that you said I'm happy, very comfortable and happy to share with others to know that you're not alone. Everyone's childhood is, some people had a decent childhood. Some people had some things in their childhood that they might not use the label trauma as. However, it may be having an effect. For myself, I experienced physical and psychological abuse. My stepmother was physically abusive, would beat myself and my brothers, and even to the extreme of when I was 7 years old, I actually watched my stepmother kill my 5-year-old brother. She picked him up by his feet and dropped him on his head on the concrete. It severed his brainstem, and she told everyone that he fell off the pool deck, and threatened myself and my other brother to not to say any different. So it was very graphic for us, a lot of physical, a lot of psychological. I ran away when I was about 10 years old and ended up joining the Marine Corps from a group home when I was 17. And this definitely created this belief for me. I truly had a belief that I could not create what I'm doing today. I actually believed that it wasn't possible. I believed that I wasn't smart enough. I believed that I didn't have enough money. I believed that I didn't have enough resources. And I think that the biggest shift for me in creating what I've created in business was a personal journey of self-discovery. of realizing the gifts that I had. Every one of us each of us has unique gifts, and they're unique to each one of us because our gifts come from our experiences, and no one else lived your individual experience just like no one else lived my individual experience. And so the big shift that took me from not believing that I could do it, because at the time I was holding just the awareness of the negative of my past. And because of the awareness of all the negatives, because there was plenty of negative things that happened in my past, I did not believe that I could go further. But as I allowed myself to go that personal self-discovery journey, I realized all of the gifts that are in my past as well. There's two sides to every coin. Like, for example, I share with people my drive, my passion, my discipline, my empathy. A lot of these are not things that I worked to create. Most people would see me as a empathetic, as a disciplined person. I didn't do a thing to become disciplined, or I didn't do a thing to become empathetic. It's part of my past, and so now I now use that as my gifts going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And Greg is also a fellow podcaster. So if you guys want to hear his show, it's Success After Trauma. And he actually interviews people that have had traumas in their own likes and their own experiences. And so again, for anyone that has had trauma, you're never alone, right? You're never alone.
Beautiful.
And it's super important to know that. So I highly encourage you to go watch or listen to whatever you prefer to Success After Trauma. And that's Greg's personal podcast. But Greg, with having that childhood, like you said, running away at 10 years old, joining the Marine Corps, we talked about it a little bit, but your intention in the Marine Corps was to honestly not make it home, right? And talk about that a little bit, because I think there are plenty of people that join the military in more, I'm just going to say, a pissed off state, right? And they do so because it's the only thing they have, they feel, or whatever the case may be. Did your experience in the Marine Corps shift that thought process at all, or is that how you joined, went through, and got out?
Great questions. Great questions. I did not understand patriotism as a 17-year-old young man. I didn't understand it because most of my life I was literally trying to stay alive. So I didn't even experience like when we think about America being a country, I was literally worried about me as an individual, be it getting food or be it staying safe or whatever the case may be. Joining the military for me was a process of I had no clue. I thought that when I think back to myself as a 17-year-old before I joined the military or saw the military as an option, I saw the military as this man, I'm trying to think of the labels. Like, to me, the military was on this massive pedestal. Like, it wasn't even something that I was capable of, but like, those people are honorable. And while I was in the group home, in going to high school, the recruiters came by and said, "Hey, do you want to join?" And I thought it was like as a joke. I was telling them like, "Yeah, right, I'll join." Like, I can't get in. I didn't think I would be able to get in with whatever history that I had at the time. And truth be told, I did require some waivers to be able to get in. But as you know as well as I know, that didn't deter a recruiter. So nonetheless, they were like, "Yeah, no, we can get you in." So I felt like the ability to get in the military, like I felt like I hit the lottery. So when I first got in, it wasn't like a decision of this is what I want to do. When I got told like, no, I can't, when a recruiter said, no, we can get you, we can figure it out, we can get you in, like I felt like I won the lottery. And I didn't really understand what the military was, but I saw them as this, like, they're a pedestal, and like, I don't know exactly what they are, but you guys are letting me in there. Once I got in the military and understood what was going on, based on timing, it was right on the beginning of the war. And when I first got in, we hadn't even entered in Iraq yet. But while I was in boot camp SOI, I think we originally we entered. And as soon as I got out of SOI, I got stationed with 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, which was a unit that was deploying So pretty much like, I don't know, like 6 months, 8 months, whatever the math is, out of high school, I was already in Kuwait. And so I went after that first deployment. I came back. We weren't back for very long. We went back on a second deployment, and I realized how honorable it was to fight for our country. And I had no clue. In my mind at the time, like, I won the lottery. Like, there's no way we could surpass this. Like, I won the lottery. And I knew that there was life left, as in, like, I was young, and I was afraid of, I'll use the label destroy. I was afraid of taking my life after doing this honorable thing and living in a non-honorable way. I didn't know what I would do, but I just thought, like, this is the pinnacle. So I had created this idea in my mind that we'll just die doing this, and we won the lottery. We hit the pinnacle. We did the thing, and we wrapped it all up. And I was super good with that. I didn't have family per se. Like, when I would come back from these deployments, I didn't have family I was going home to. So I did have the desire to just continue going back until I died over there. But it was, at the time, for me, it was a beautiful thought for me. I was not depressed by this thought. Eventually, to help put some closure for people listening, I did 3 deployments, and I volunteered to go back to a 4th, but I was flagged for having PTSD. I was sent for a psychological evaluation and determined to be non-deployable. So I didn't get to. The blessing is, obviously, in hindsight, looking back, I didn't get to go through with that plan.
Okay. And for all active duty or veterans listening to this right now, I think this is very important to talk about, because so many of us don't know what to do after the military, right? Looking at it, I know plenty of people that have continued on, I'm going to say, contract after contract, simply because they didn't know what was else, right? What else was out there? It's hard to adapt to a 9 to 5, and somebody, telling you what to do. And it's different from how we were told what to do in the military. Right. And so with that being said, so many veterans and active duty currently wondering what to do next, struggle with that thought process. And so this, I think, is very crucial for them to find themselves when you did get out. And just for everyone to know, it is okay, right? When you did get out, was it immediate happy joy? You found the path, or was there a struggle path?
Very much a struggle path for myself. Yeah, everyone's path is unique, but I definitely allowed myself. I did really good with the struggle chapter for a little bit. I did not, for speaking on myself, when I got out, I had joined from a group home, and before the group home, I was in a detention center. I was fairly institutionalized majority of my life. When I got out, it's slightly embarrassing to say, but it's just the rawest truth. I had no clue how to take care of myself as an adult. In the military, there's a place to eat, there's food, there's a check that goes in the account, there's a place to be, a vehicle that takes you there, a uniform to wear. Everything is everything, as long as you just connect all the dots, you're going to be good. When I got out, I thought I wanted all that freedom, and then I realized I had all that freedom and no clue what to do. And so that was a big structure, was a big learning how to structure my life was a big challenge for me. And then the next big challenge was, which was that personal self-discovery journey, was realizing that, and I think there's a lot for what you were touching on, realizing that we are warriors, and we're so much bigger than that. Like, realizing that identity, a lot of times, for a lot of people, and I'm sharing from my own path, we take on the entire identity of this warrior, and then when we no longer get to do the actions of the warrior, we feel like we're lost. But we were bigger than the warrior. The warrior was just a part of us. It was not all of us. And I think that's a big um, mental and emotional gap to cover when we get out, realizing that that was just part of us. We're so much bigger than it. That was not all of us. So yeah, I had to struggle for a little while. I struggled around till I started figuring out. It was probably about a year and a half to 2 years where I really struggled a bit. And even after that, it was, you know, slowly but surely putting it together. But for about a good year and a half, I struggled when I got out, not sure in which way to go or what to do.
What was your personal first job or experience outside of the military?
Car sales.
Car sales?
Car sales, the first run. I knew nothing about sales. I wasn't good at communicating. I had no job, and I actually went into the dealership and offered them to wash the cars. And the guy said, he said, no, we already have a porter, which I didn't even know what that term meant at the time. And I didn't have a job. I didn't even have electricity, and I had an eviction notice in the studio that I was staying at. And so I told this guy, I said, hey, I said, you know, about the cars. He said, no, we already have a porter. I said, what about the bathrooms? I said, I'll clean the toilet cleaner than you've ever seen it. And he said, I like your tenacity. You want to try sales. So that's kind of how that all kicked off.
Okay.
Car sales, the first one. Yeah, go ahead.
And when you left the military, I think we talked about this actually. When you left the military, that was in California when you got out.
It's correct.
And your car sales position was that in California or was that in Nashville?
California.
Okay. And so talk about the car sales in California and then how where Nashville, Tennessee came into play.
Yeah. So I was doing car sales for about 2 years out in California, and I had started this my self discovery, personal development journey. Now, mind you, at the time, I didn't hire a coach. I was just reading books, so I didn't trust people at the time. So I didn't hire a coach. I didn't go to any courses. I didn't have a therapist. I didn't trust people, but I started reading these books and I started digesting this information. And it was just little by little, I started realizing that, oh, there is different information than what I was currently governing my life off of. And I realized with this new information, I was really just treating my life like an experiment. And I started realizing like, oh, this information, like there's a different way of living. And so I started this journey. I decided that I would forgive my stepmother. And it was a very, very long and hard journey. 2 years into that journey, still in California, still doing car sales, I believed that I had arove at forgiveness. The truth is, it took me probably another 8 years to really finalize forgiving my stepmother. I mean, I'm very certain to this day now that I've fully forgiven her. At 2 years, I wasn't. We were not done that process, but nonetheless, I thought I was. And as crazy as this sounds, someone stole my car in California, and so then I had no way of getting to work at the time. And so I remember I thought to myself, I was like, this is where I was like, I got a problem to solve anyway. If I'm going to solve a problem, I'm not solving a problem to figure out how to keep a job. This is where I started thinking, like, if I got to solve a problem anyway, I got to make money anyway. How do we want to do this? And I literally got a Greyhound ticket out here to Tennessee. I had no clue what I was going to do, but I just knew that I would figure it out. And why Tennessee? My stepmother, she has since passed. She was still alive and living in Tennessee. And I came out here to see her face to face, to tell her to her face that I forgive her. We did not have a relationship at all. Like we did not on the phone talking, none of these things. And I knew that when I saw her face to face, you know, it was really risky at the time. I wouldn't never coach someone to do this, but this is just what I did. I knew that when I saw her face to face that there would be a physiological response, and that if I really forgave her, that I would be okay to tell her that I forgave her. And if I didn't really forgive her, I didn't know what would happen next, but I thought I was comfortable enough to do it. The truth is, I was far enough on my journey to actually do that without causing any troubles. But it did require more work to fully come and to forgive her. So what brought me to Tennessee? Forgiving my stepmother is what brought me to Tennessee. And from the car business,
What a
I
heck of a
just
trip.
yeah, on a Greyhound. And when I got out here, I decided that I would start my own business. I had very very little capital. Like maybe I had like $1,500. When I say little capital, I knew nothing about business. I just knew that if I was going to mess it up, I was going to mess it up all on my own. And so when I thought about what business will I start, I thought about what am I good at? And what I came up with was cleaning things from the Marine Corps. So I started a cleaning business. And so that was the next, that was the onset of entrepreneurship and business inside of Tennessee.
Okay. So I want to put a pin in that and go back to the car sales aspect for a moment. When you were selling cars, you were in selling cars for 2 years in California.
Yep.
And what was your success like with that?
Car sales, I did very well in car sales, or I mean, what is very well? I mean, I was very happy with what I did. Um, when I first, one of the biggest assets that I had when I first got into sales was I had no clue how to do sales. And why was that? That was a really big asset because I knew that I understood at some unconscious level, like these people came on the lot to buy a car. While car sales is not the most respected profession of all the things that people sell in the world, car sales, like these people came to buy the thing that's being sold. Versus cold calls and things of that nature. Okay, so I understood that they actually wanted what I was selling them. I had no clue how to do sales. So I just really did my best to build a relationship with them. You know, as well as I know today from all the things we've studied and trained, what I had was unconscious rapport. Because I didn't understand anything about a sales process. I just loved on these people. They could feel that energy. And so I did well in sales. And in the first, maybe like 2 or 3 months, I had sold a decent number of cars. And I actually took the first bit of money that I made and reinvested it and went to my first seminar. It was a Joe Verdi seminar, and that really set my life in motion as far as training and coaches went for all the years to come.
What do you think was the set for the unconscious rapport? Like for anybody that is active duty or a veteran themselves, or anybody outside of that, even that matter, sales is, I think, a gateway to entrepreneurship, I
Yeah.
would say, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you, obviously at the time you didn't realize you had unconscious rapport, but what skill set do you think gave you that?
Coming out from the military, I think, well, skill set, I don't know if this title's a skill set, but I think what helped me do rapport so well was this is my projection. This is my thought. Um, what the average human being, I say average human being, I mean someone that hasn't been in the military, hasn't been to combat. I think people, like, there was no fear around whether someone bought or didn't buy or what they said or not. So I didn't have, like, I was okay to, like, if I went out and told someone, hey, you have to put $25,000 down. Well, I noticed other salespeople would carry, they would go and they would be afraid to say that number because it was so large. But I had no fear. I just, like, hey, you want to buy a car? I know you want to buy a car. You need $25,000 down. And so
Mm.
the rapport was there, like, because I'm connected with them. I didn't have any. I guess that's the best way I would project it. I didn't have any fear around the information that I was sharing, but I also didn't understand the value of. I didn't understand the structure of the process either.
Okay. And so fast forward, you hop on a Greyhound to get to Nashville, Tennessee, and you get into the cleaning business. Did did you know at some form that you wanted to be a business owner, entrepreneur, or was it just the hustle and bustle of I need to make a dollar? How can I make a dollar?
No, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and where did that insight come from? Going to couple years prior to car sales, prior to getting out of the military, I didn't think it was possible for me at all. But when I started going to these seminars and these events, I started rubbing elbows with all these entrepreneurs, and I started realizing like, oh, all these people have backstories too.
Mm.
And so now I'm like, oh, not now. I'm like realizing, oh, if it's possible, that's all I want. I 100% was after entrepreneurial business owner. Like I wanted it so bad.
So, but it was the car sales and then reinvesting into knowing how to be a better salesman led you to bumping elbows with realizing that most people that are successful have some sort of backstory. And then you felt it was possible for you.
100%. 100%.
I really think that's important to talk about because there's so many people in this world right now that have not been given the easiest path, right? Or best jumpstart, we'll call it. And there's one of two roads you can go down, right? You have a fork in life. And when we look at that, there's going to be obstacles no matter which direction, but there's one or two paths we can go down. We can go down the exception of this is who I am because this is the life I was given. And we can go down that direction. And that's where we see, whether it be homelessness, crime, just not overall a good quality of life because of the mindset and the mentality of I was just given this circumstance, right? And
Right.
this is why I do this. Or you can go down the path of I'm going to make something great in my life and it's my choice to. I own this and I'm going to go change the direction of my legacy and my family history, right?
100%.
And because you decided to choose that path, now your son and your kids, right, and your family never have to experience anything that you did. Right.
100%.
And so that is such a crucial mind shift. I think that is the most important part for anybody that's sitting there analyzing their life. Right. Or not even analyzing your life. If you're not analyzing your life, now you can analyze your life. Right. And so choosing that path, what do you think was the number one thing or what do you think is the number one thing that someone should do to open their eyes to the paths of opportunity?
So number one thing someone could do so if they're not even realizing the potential, what's the number one thing they can do to start realizing the potential and seeing the potential?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that success leaves clues. So for those of you that are listening, that maybe you have the smallest inclination or insight or thought or belief or feeling that it's possible, but the majority of you understands why it's not possible. I'm going to suggest success leaves clues. You got to get around more people that have created whatever you call what is success. Okay, what is success? So if success to you is digging ditches in the backyard, you got to get around more people that have already dug ditches in their backyard. You're going to start by the environment, by controlling and cultivating your environment. If success is getting to seven figures, if success is having $100 liquid in your hand, get around people that have $100 liquid in their hand, or get around people that are producing seven figures in their business, whatever the case may be, because you're going to start finding clues. If you just start getting around these people, you're going to collect enough evidence in the other direction that you couldn't believe that it's not possible. So I'm going to suggest that number one biggest thing is really getting around people that have already done what it is you desire to do.
So for what about the people that are saying, well, I'd love to be around millionaires, right? But I make like $30,000 right now. How would I possibly do that? What's your guidance for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thought of how do I get around millionaires? We got to get around people first. So now you got to start looking at, let's say I make $30,000 a year. So the average person I'm around is only making $30,000 a year. Now, first and foremost, there is a way, like someone doesn't have to stair step it. There's a potential for you to just get linked up with people making seven figures. But first thing I would say to these people is there's two things I want to highlight. First thing I want to highlight is look up how many millionaires there are just in America. There's probably a lot more than you ever fathomed.
Yeah.
There's probably a couple on your street that you're not even paying attention to. All right. Secondly, the second thing is, let's say I make $30,000 a year. I've never rubbed elbows with millionaires. I don't even know what the conversation sounds like. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to ask them. Get around people making $75,000 a year first, and then get around people making $150,000 a year, and then get around people making $200,000 and $500,000 a year, and 750,000. Stair step your way up. So if you're at 30,000 and it's like, Greg, I would love to be around millionaires, but that I don't even know where that is. Then get around people making 75K a year. The conversation is different already. I promise. They're making more than twice as much you're making at 30. So allow yourself to stair step up. Whatever you don't have, don't worry about. Work on what you do have. Do you have one friend or one associate that makes 75K?
Okay. And let's say just tangibly speaking, I don't know anybody that makes $60,000 a year. How could I go change my association to get someone around 60,
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So I don't even know. So like, I don't even know anyone. The people in my sphere don't know. First of all, does someone in your sphere know someone? Because then you have an introduction for them. But let's make this really hard. Like, people in your sphere don't even know people making $60,000 a year. I'm gonna recommend go on Meetup and Eventbrite. Meetup and Eventbrite. Yes, 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 yes. So whatever your topics of interest are, there is all kinds of free meetups, all kinds of free networking events, lunch and learns, things of that nature. Start getting into. So I have a group right now that I lead, and I challenge each person in this group to get to 3 events per week. 3 events per week. This is gonna put you into a new sphere. Mind you, when you're at this place, only link up with the people that you link up with. If they're not your tribe, don't. If you don't vibe, then don't bring them to the tribe. But if you vibe and you start linking, this is going to start growing your network. Conversations are going to get different. You're going to start getting invited to new and different parties and things of that nature. Hey, Colby, I can't hear you. If you can hear me, I'm not sure if.
Oh, can you hear me?
Gotcha. Yep.
Perfect. That is a huge tangible piece, right? Huge. Like, if you don't know anybody or you don't even think you know anyone, how can you get out there, right? Because I think that's the most stuck piece that everyone, actually, I'm going to say, I know that's the most like hardest piece to get out there, right? Everyone feels stuck in where they're at. So how can you get outside of where you're at? Meetup.com, Eventbrite, and go network with the people that you want to associate yourself with. And that is, that's powerful. That's really powerful.
And if you got it, listen, for those of you listen, and if you have the capital, if you have the resources, get to the paid events, man. That's where the real magic is. You got to think like an event that costs $1,500, $2,500 for your ticket for a one-day event in this room. Everyone else in that room has the same level of skin in the game. Everyone else in that room is a mover and shaker at some level. If you have the resources, get to the paid events. But listen, if you're like, hey, I don't even have the resources, there's plenty of free events out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there's free meetups that happen probably 4 times, 5 times a week. I still get notifications from the Nashville meetups, and I've clicked unsubscribe like 10 times, and they're like, no, you can't leave.
Yeah.
So that is super powerful, right? And that's even something like consciously we don't think of, right? And so I think that's a huge tangible piece. Now, what I want to get into is your entrepreneurial path, because again, you knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and that transpired from car sales, right?
Yes.
And then so from car sales, you want to be an entrepreneur, but you don't know exactly what path yet.
Yep,
right? It's anything and everything you can make $1. And so you start by, I'm gonna create a cleaning business.
Yep.
Right. So through that, kind of talk about your first introduction into the entrepreneurship aspect of things. How did that go? How did that transpire? Where did that, finalize?
I'll take us from the cleaning business to where we're at now. So when I launched the cleaning business, I had paid for, while I was going to those events and seminars from while I was in car sales, I went to several events that I went to. I saw people that I would label as success, aesthetically speaking. So the way they carried themselves, their body language, their clothes. I saw these people and I'm like, dude, that guy, I want to be like that. And because I felt like, I'm like, I like how he carries himself. I like how he talks. I like his clothes. Sometimes it'd be women. And every single time I asked these people, because by the way, get around people that are doing what you want. So I would ask these people like, hey, what do you do for a living? And I kept getting the same answer, and it was real estate. And so I started realizing that, oh, well, if I want to be successful, then I have to get into real estate. When I launched the cleaning business, I paid the like $350 for like the first portion of to get my real estate license. I knew I wanted real estate. I didn't even have enough to buy the license. Mine launched the business. So I launched the cleaning business because I only $1,000. I buy a pack of rags, a bucket, some cleaner. We're rolling. I can do the rest with labor. So the idea was the cleaning business was going to give me enough money to launch into real estate. Real estate's the passion because I believe that's where success is. So we get busy in the cleaning business, and because I'm trading time, I end up selling all 24 hours in the day and pretty much capping out the business. And I had a mentor recommend that I read the E-Myth. Have you read the E-Myth yet, Colby, by chance?
I actually have not.
Dude, it's well worth a read. Everyone listen, it's worth a read. So the E-Myth talks about in that book, way more in depth, but the quick abstraction of the book is, it says, sell your product or service systematically and not personally. So it's kind of like the idea of what Ray Kroc did with McDonald's. So essentially, like the idea was that when I created this cleaning business, I sold me. I was like, I got attention to detail. I'm a Marine, discipline, and so they bought me. But when I sold all 24 hours, I couldn't sell anything else, and the business was fully capped out. Mm-hmm. So someone recommended this E-Myth book, and so I started realizing like, oh, it really, really helped me. I took the business. I had one account that had a lady had 21 vacation rental lofts, and she would rent them and turn them by the day. She'd pay us $150 a unit to clean them. So I went through and I created a system so that if I hired someone yesterday and put them in the room, I had an entire book that had pictures and like how to do it, what to do, what order to do it, where all the items were. So like if I hired you yesterday and gave you no training, I could hand you this book and you could make one of these rooms become where I need them to be. This is the first time I started implementing systems as an entrepreneur.
Right. So talking about the cash flow quadrant. So you were really self-employed with your cleaning business. Now you implemented the system to where you can now scale it to a business aspect.
Bingo. I hire on some employees, and then one night I was my wife and I were having a date night at TGI Fridays, and I told my wife, I said I bet I could come serve a couple nights a week and make our date night money so it doesn't have to come out of the account. And my wife says, yeah, maybe it's probably a good idea. And I just hired a few employees, so now I have a little bit of time. So I'm going to use that time serving. So I go in the restaurant industry, start serving. One of the employees that is running the company for me, I say running the company, I mean he was pretty much running the damn company. Any time in my absence, he was the go-to. I end up selling him not the company name, but the contracts of the company for 10 grand. So now I still own the company, but it has no contracts now. I sold it. The restaurant industry asked me to go into management. When they asked me to go into management, I had never been in management before. I'd never had a salary job before. They asked me, they said, how much would we have to pay you? And I said, 50,000. I didn't know. And I just thought that was a good round number. And they said, okay, done. I don't know if I could ask for more or not, but that was the number that we started at. So now that I went in management, this takes up all my time. I don't have the same flexibility in time. This guy over here buys that company. I'm super excited. I still have the goal. The original goal is still there. I want to get in real estate. But now I'm completely occupied in the restaurant business. So the restaurant business, I start getting quarterly bonuses. So I start saving these bonuses. And I had a plan that the whole time I'm in the restaurant industry, the whole time I have a plan that I'm just saving up enough to get out so I can go into real estate. This game goes on for 4 years. And I'm getting quarterly bonuses. So like I'd get a bonus, like 2 weeks before the bonus would come in, I'd be like, I'm I'm out of here. I'm done. 14 days. Like I wouldn't tell anyone, but this is what I'm saying to myself. I'm like, I'm out of here. I get that bonus check. It'd be a nice one. I'd be like, yeah, I probably could do another quarter. I probably give him 90 more days. I could do this again. So I did. I kept doing like one quarter at a time and just collecting these little quarterly bonuses, saving them up. And then eventually I got to a place where I was like, you know what? I got to do this. I got to commit. And I fully quit the restaurant industry and launched into real estate. That was in 2019, I
That's
think.
around the time we met then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Early 2019. So I just completely quit, just fully quit and launched into real estate as a real estate agent. So as a real estate agent, just like all agents, I had my phase where I struggled it was about 6 months where I really struggled. But after that, I really got into the algorithm pretty strong. And then real estate the passion has always been for a long time in that speak in transformation, things of that nature. So real estate for me by far was a vehicle to expand my network, like we were talking earlier, and also a financial vehicle. Real estate still exists for me. I have a real estate team that I run. But about 3 years ago, I launched the training academy, doing the transformational events, the speaking, the coaching. And that's what fulfills my passion. That's what lights me on fire.
That's awesome. So I mean, I think that's great for everyone listening right now. Like, it's okay to not know where you line up yet,
Boom.
right? Just to get into it, find out the path that you want to take. But I also want everyone to understand, like, it wasn't, from struggles to triumph, right? There was definitely some down times in your entrepreneur path. If you could take an estimated guess, how many times do you think you fell on your face?
Oh, golly. I mean, tons, like super mega tons. I don't like literally like a ton. But every time, as you know, and everyone listen knows, like every time, if you allow yourself to take the learning, you become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. I mean, I'm so wise for everything that I learned along the way. But yeah, I had um, a ton of learning opportunities along the way.
What's the biggest one that stands out to you?
Biggest learning opportunity in the entrepreneurial journey.
Mhm.
Um, how do I want to say it? The biggest learning is seeking help. So whether that was a mentor, hiring a coach, paying for the course, but I went. So my personal development journey is about 13 years, 12 years, I think, coming up on 13. But only within the last 3.5 years have we really begun to like take off and scale and do some pretty cool things. Um, I was so afraid to trust people that I tried to go at it alone the entire time. Probably one of the biggest learnings was realizing, allowing myself to reach out and seek guidance and seek help for whatever next level I'm looking to get to.
So what event happened that made you realize I need an external source to guide me? Was there a
Man,
specific event?
um, the biggest thing that I would say, well, there's two big ones. There's two events. Let me highlight two events. The first event was when I think I've shared this one with you before, and I love this one. It's so powerful. That Joe Verdi, that first event that first seminar I've ever went to. There was like 8 of us in this seminar, and it cost like $3,500 to be there. And at the time, like this is like unfathomable for me to spend $3,500 on a ticket. It's my first one. And so it's like 8 of us, and Joe Verdi asked, he says, who here is making more than 50K in sales? And everyone else raised their hand, so I raised my hand. And then he's like, who here's making more than 75K? And a couple people didn't raise their hand that time, so I was comfortable not raising mine. And then he says, who here is making over 100K? And there was maybe there was like 2 or 3 guys who here's making over 125K. And there's 2 guys that still had their hand raised, and they were sitting right next to me. And I thought to myself, dude, like on lunch break, like I got to ask these guys all the questions, right? Like maybe they'll give me a job. Like this is what I'm thinking. And Joe Verdi asked, he says, how much are you making? He asked the one guy, whatever number, maybe he said 137. And he asked the other guy, how much are you making? Like 145. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm thinking to myself, like these guys cracked the code. And then Joe Verdi looks at them and he says, how long you been in that rut?
Mm.
That was massive for me in terms of when we're talking about realizing outside. Um, Something outside made me, like Joe Verdi said this, and it made me realize at the time I didn't totally quantify that, hey, an outside factor helped me have this massive breakthrough right now. I didn't quite quantify it at the time, but looking back, that was one where if I didn't go to this event, if I didn't have an external opinion subjected upon me, I would have never even allowed myself to break through to that next level of thought that this guy is in a rut.
Wow.
I would say the next biggest one was when I finally when I invested in myself in NLP, and I had a mentor um, take me through a pretty deep self-discovery journey. Those are the labels I'll use. Um, it was really a big thing was I had this mentor ask me, why did I want to be a motivational speaker? And I told him, I said, well, because I want to help other people. And he said, yeah, that's all good, but why do you want to be a motivational speaker? And I said, well, because I don't want them to have to go through what I went through. And he's like, well, that's good, Greg. And that's what's in it for them. But I'm asking you, Greg, why do you want to be a motivational speaker? What's in it for you? And I said,
Mm.
well, I'm not doing it for the money. And he said, I know you're not doing it for the money. By the way, that's what you're not doing it for. I'm asking you, what are you doing it for? What's in it for you? And it was really it was even frustrating for me at the moment because I'm like, I don't understand. I answered the question. And he helped guide me to a place where in which I realized, because I had to think, I was like, what's in it for me? If I'm not doing it for the money, then why, like, if I'm not, like, why even do this then? Like, we don't have to do
Right.
it at all. Like, why? And what I realized, like, why is, like, afterwards, when I get done speaking, first of all, the applause. Second of all, like, people come up to me and saying things like, dude, you changed my life. Like, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. That's so inspiring. That makes me feel value. Well, at the time, the mentor had shared with me, he said, oh, so then without that, you don't feel that value. And that was true. And so I had a journey of self-love to go on. Because of that experience definitely, like, consciously, I realized how valuable it was. Not having an outside force, I was not going to be able to take myself that deep by myself. So that was that, and that happened probably about 3.5 years ago. That when that experience happened, it was very conscious for me that, oh shit, like there's things in my internal model of the world that I'm not going to be able to get to myself without guidance.
I love that. I want to ask you two questions based off of your journey. Um, One would be for those entrepreneurs trying to find their path right now that are in a rut and have been in a rut for a minute. What would you say is the biggest piece of advice that you could give them right now to get out of that rut?
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Let's think about this. So they're in a rut. They've been in a rut. And then what's the biggest piece of advice that I'm going to give them to shift the rut? Okay. The biggest piece of advice that I'm going to give you, this doesn't taste great. This doesn't taste great, everyone. But if there's an entrepreneur listening to this right now and they're like, because if you're in the rut, you've been stuck, you're in the, you're there. And if you're there and you truly have the desire, this doesn't taste great, but you have to own all your problems. You have to be responsible for all of your problems. And it sucks because when we're in the rut, we want nothing more than people to realize, I'm in the rut. I need help. And my advice to you was, no, own all your problems and get up on your own. Okay, listen, if you need help, if you're like, no, Greg, I need help, then please take your advice and go get help. But for the rest of you, one of the most empowering things you will ever do is collect and own all of your problems. Creativity will flow immediately afterwards. When we're in the rut, we say, I can't do it because this is going on and this is affect the economy and this and this. We're the problem is all outward. But if you then say, you know what, the economy has shifted and I have yet to shift my business, creativity will begin to flow. So the biggest thing that I'm suggesting, the biggest asset that I'm sharing to those entrepreneurs listening that know they're in a rut right now, if you say, "Hey, I cannot do this. I need help. I'm depressed," whatever the case may be, if you know you need help, I encourage you to take your advice and go get help. For all of the rest of you, collect your problems, own them, take responsibility for them, and decide to change them. And that's one of the most powerful things that are going to get you out of that rut.
That's powerful. For the second question would be for anyone that's just trying to find their way, right? Maybe they had a great childhood that is encouraging them to find their way, or maybe they didn't have the best childhood and they know they want more out of life, but they have zero idea on what the first step is.
I love it.
Right?
I'm well prepared for this one, actually. So I'm going to share a short metaphor. When I had the cleaning business, in the beginning, I sold Greg, so I'm the one in there cleaning the toilets, making them shine. So what I would do is daydream each day. I would daydream so that I would get to be somewhere else mentally while I'm taking care of this chore. And I daydreamed that I had like billions of dollars in an account. And I started daydreaming how I would want to spend money being filthy, stinking rich. And so I daydreamed. And I mean, like, this went on for hours, days, weeks, and months. So like, I dreamed that I had someone growing organic foods and I had a chef preparing them. I had all these features in my house, cars, ATVs, then it grows to helicopters, then it goes to vacation homes, then it goes to like owning entire islands. So I just kept, and I would just go out, and it was so fun because like, hey, we're just spending money in my mind, right? Well, I got to a place in my mind. I got to a day in my mind where I showed up to do my little daydream and I literally was bored. And I thought to myself, I'm going to create this. I'm going to create this. And I thought to myself, knowing that I am going to create this being abundance, financial abundance, I said, well, then if all these things are going to make me bored, that's good to know. So I can spend money on them, but they're not going to satiate me. But if all these things make me bored in the end, that's fine. What will I do to not be bored? And I literally began to ponder this question. Like, what would I actually visualized and imagined that I'm here and I own all of these things and they bore me. And then I thought to myself, I said, well, you know what? I would literally pay people money to show up and listen to me speak. The applause and when people, oh my gosh, you changed my life. Like, it meant so much to me that I would then lose money for it. Not only did I not have to make money, not only would I do it for free, but I would lose money to do it. That's when I knew for sure, this was in 2015, this is when I knew for sure speaking was my passion. I say this to say, allow yourself to take all the time you need and daydream the life of your dreams until you get to boredom. And in that day, then ponder, what will you do when it's no longer about money? What will you do with your time for the sake of fulfillment? Speaking to others allowed me to feel fulfilled, which was evidence that it was my passion. For those looking for their passion, allow yourself to mentally visualize all the things you would love doing until you get to boredom. And then how will you fulfill your time when it's no longer about money? This is your passion, and allow yourself to take all the time you need to find it. There is one piece of good news that I want to leave everyone with. You cannot miss your passion because you're passionate about it. You won't miss it.
100%. So I love that because I was actually listening to a Brad Lee podcast this morning, and it actually had Andy Elliott in it. And the first thing that Andy Elliott said was basically your thoughts become things, right? He wasn't speaking about the RAS literally, but he was talking about the law of attraction. And then Brad Lee came back and said, but wait a minute, like I'm trying to comprehend what you're saying here, but without action, it doesn't matter, because he said there's millions of people daydreaming about making millions and driving Lambos and helicopters and owning islands, but nobody's taking action to do it. So, because what Andy Elliott was trying to do was get Bradley to drop the bomb, right? And because that's Bradley's thing in his podcast. And so Bradley was like, hold on, I'm challenging you, right? It's actually about action. And then they were basically going back and forth about it for a minute. And I think it is super imperative, right? Thoughts become things, and your positivity towards life has to be there, but then the action backing it. For you personally, was it the money and stuff that was driving you to do the action, or was it till you found your passion that drove you to do the action?
Well, at first it was money. At first it was money. I didn't know what my goals were, so I wanted money. But this is very natural for most human beings. Before we find our passion, before we know what we want, we're like, well, I want to be successful, so I want money. You find your passion when you realize, like, nobody wants money. Like, why the fuck do we want money? Like, it's like, for what? Like, it's a depreciating asset, like a horridly depreciating asset. What we want is the things that money will allow us to do.
Right.
So at first, money was the driver because I didn't know what the thing is that I wanted to do. Now money is no longer the driver in the sense that I love having money, love spending money, I love enjoying luxurious things. But if I had no money and I was able to live my passion, it'd be okay. So now the focal point is the passion for sure, and then the money just flows with it, of course.
Right, of course. I love that. So the money was the initial start. And so for everyone listening, they're like, I just want to be rich. I don't know why. That's okay. Right. But like you said, continue asking yourself. I took down a note where your mentor said, why do you want to? Right. And so keep asking yourself, why do you want the money? Right.
Yep.
And then, well, why do you want that? And then keep digging that deep. And I think that's going to help arrive at your passion. But there's a few key points that I want to take away from this personally, and that I want to pass it over to you to just, basically give some tangible go action steps right now to go create the life of abundance that you desire. But associations, right? First and foremost, you got to find your associations. Distinguish the difference between friendships and associations. Right? Your friendships are people that you have relationships with at one point in time. Your associations are the people you spend your time with. And so if you're making $30,000, but you want to make $100,000, you need to go associate yourself with people that are making $100,000. If you're making $100,000, you want to make $500,000, go associate yourself with people that make $500,000. How do you do that? Meetup.com, Eventbrite, right? And go to the networking events that are going to allow you to do that. And I love the continuous aspect of, well, why do you want to? And making sure that you're not saying, well, I don't want this. No, why do you want this? Right? Why do you want it? And allow yourself to think about that answer and ponder that answer. And then the whole aspect of your thoughts become your things. But Greg, with that being said, I know you have so much knowledge to provide. And for everybody listening that wants to know more about Greg, I encourage you to reach out to him via social media at Facebook. Or GP Mind Growth Academy, right? Or gregpihs.com. And I'll include those links in the description as well. But Greg, just like go get it, tangibles, like go get a life of abundance. Where does it start? And what's like the three things like take action on right now?
Let me give so I'm not sure if I'll have three, but let me put this on. So I love law of attraction. I'm huge on law of attraction, right? Thoughts become things. I want to share my little wisdom on that with you guys. So thoughts become things in the law of attraction. The law of attraction, I feel, gets a bad rap in the sense of like, hey, we realize like, hey, it requires action. We need to, and it 100% it does. Let me break down the law of attraction like this for everyone. And actually, if it's okay with you, Colby, I'm just going to do one instead of three. I'm going to do just one, and it's going to be this one right here. I'm going to give you something right now. I'm going to break down what it is and something you can do differently with your mind, that this one thing will 100% set your law of attraction on fire. I mean, absolutely put it to a 10. And here's what it is. All things that humans have created, everything that humans have ever created, have only been created after thought. We have not created anything before we thought about it. We have not created anything before we thought about it. So, with that, here's what I want everyone to realize. Everything that has ever come into creation created by us humans had to have thought first. Anything that was, here's what's more. So, because it was thought, it was able to come into creation. But notice that because it was thought does not mean it will come into creation. Okay, so here's big takeaways here. The thought took place. It could come into creation, but it is not guaranteed to come into creation. It could, not guaranteed to. Okay? Now, the opposite side of this coin is we don't have the thought. When we don't have the thought, it is guaranteed to not come into creation. It is guaranteed to not come into creation. If we have the thought, it is not guaranteed to come into creation. If we don't have the thought, it is guaranteed to not come in creation. Okay. So the one thing that I'm going to give you inside of the law of attraction, be conscious of your thoughts. Only think about things the way you would like them to happen. Just because you thought of it does not mean it will come into creation. However, if you don't think about the things you don't want into creation, you're guaranteeing them not to come. So of all of the positive thoughts, if you were to get your mind to only have positive thoughts, and the stat is, and I don't know who came up with this, but the stat is 85,000 thoughts per day for the average human. Of those 85,000 thoughts, if all of them are positive, we know for sure all 85,000 of them are not coming into creation. But whatever does happen to come into creation, if all of them were abundant thoughts and towards energy for what you want, then the only thing that could come into creation is abundance towards what you want. So be conscious of your thoughts. It's not as important that you wish you were a millionaire as it is that you are mindful when you are thinking of things like, I don't have enough money. Because now you are introducing that into the potential of reality. It is not true that you don't have enough money. You have exactly enough money right now, unless someone is standing in front of you and you have a tab that's due right now and you don't have the dollars for it. Because even if you have a bill that's owed right now, you can go generate the money for that bill. Allow yourself, the big takeaway I'm giving you, be conscious of your thoughts. Think about it the way you want it and reject thoughts of the way you don't want it. Colby, thank you for having me on here, brother.
Thank you, Greg. That was huge, right? That was huge. Your thoughts are the most crucial piece to, in my personal opinion, to your positive mindset, right? So, Greg, thank you so much. Again, guys, if you want to know more about Greg, I'm going to drop all his information into the description. Remember that you were born to be something great and you were born to be successful. So it is time for you to own that success and step into that success. So thank you guys for joining. Have a great day.
Boom.